My sister tried to put my newborn up for adoption behind my back because she thought my baby was stealing attention from hers. Now, I'm pressing charges, and she's begging for mercy. I, 28F, never thought I'd find myself pressing charges against my own sister. Growing up, we shared a cramped bedroom, clothes, laughter, and secrets. Life took its turns, and now I have a newborn daughter just a few weeks old, while my sister has a baby a few months older. I thought we'd raise our children together, cousins playing side by side, but I was dead wrong. Last week, something unthinkable happened. My sister came over to my home, cooing at my baby in her bassinet. She brought small gifts and said in an exaggerated voice, "Aren't you just the sweetest thing?" But something in her tone felt forced, her smile was too tight. I shrugged it off as new mom stress. Both of us were exhausted from juggling sleepless nights. Later that day, I stepped out to the mailbox, leaving my baby asleep. My sister was still inside, supposedly washing bottles. It took me barely 5 minutes. When I came back, I noticed my baby's blanket was missing. I rushed inside, heart pounding. My sister stood in the living room, oddly flustered. She stammered something about stepping outside for fresh air, but I saw dirt smudges on her shoes and caught a glimpse of papers poking from her purse. I grew suspicious but didn't confront her on the spot. Instead, I quietly followed up on small hints. I found a strange brochure under the couch cushion, an adoption agency pamphlet. Confused, I did some digging online after she left. My gut told me something was off. That night, I found an anonymous online posting, a newborn baby girl available for private adoption with immediate placement. The description matched my daughter's general characteristics. My blood ran cold. Who else would try something this insane? I confronted her the next day, fury trembling in my voice. "What is this about an adoption ad?" She rolled her eyes, acting innocent at first, but as I pressed her, her mask slipped. She sneered, "Your baby is stealing all the attention. Everyone's fussing over your newborn and ignoring mine. I thought if your child were out of the picture, my baby would remain the center of the family." She said this as if it were perfectly logical, as if removing my child like a piece of furniture was reasonable. My legs shook as I demanded to know what she had done. She bragged that she had contacted an adoption lawyer under false pretenses, forging initial interest. She even claimed she tried moving my baby outside, hoping to stage a scenario for discovery by an agency contact. My newborn daughter, my precious child, almost became collateral in her twisted plan to regain family spotlight. Horrified, I called the police immediately. This was no mere prank, it was attempted kidnapping and fraud. The officers took my report seriously. I handed over the brochure and showed them text messages in which my sister hinted at solutions to the family's divided attention. They said I could press charges and should seek legal counsel. I nodded with tears in my eyes, knowing I had to protect my daughter at all costs. The following day, I met with a lawyer who specializes in family law and criminal matters. She explained that my sister's actions, attempting to arrange an adoption of a child she did not have the right to place, fell under serious criminal statutes. Depending on the exact details, she could face charges like attempted kidnapping, fraud, and conspiracy. The lawyer advised me to file a formal complaint and prepare for a court battle. I agreed, feeling a cold resolve settling inside me. My baby's safety mattered more than family ties. News spread quickly through the family. My parents were horrified, but not for the right reasons. My mother called with a trembling voice, "Don't ruin your sister's life over a misunderstanding." A misunderstanding? She tried to put my newborn up for adoption. My father chimed in, "We've always been a close family, work it out privately." I refused. How could I trust someone who considered my child disposable? My sister, now cornered, showed no remorse at first. She doubled down on entitlement, calling me, "You've always hogged the spotlight. Now you're doing it again by making me out to be a monster." I couldn't believe her audacity. She acted like I was just being petty, as if my baby's nearly stolen future was a trivial spat. I told her bluntly, "I'm pressing charges. The police have your name, your attempts are documented." Her bravado cracked. Suddenly she was begging, "Don't do this. It was a mistake." I was overwhelmed. "Please." She promised she'd never try it again, that she'd apologize publicly and buy anything I needed for the baby. Her words felt hollow. She saw this as a negotiation, a way to avoid consequences. I remained firm and filed the paperwork. The district attorney's office took my statement, reviewed the evidence, and confirmed they would move forward with criminal charges. They said it might take time collecting more evidence and interviewing witnesses, but that they had enough to start. In a desperate move, my sister tried to manipulate mutual friends by crying that I was overreacting. She painted herself as a victim of postpartum stress. Her baby was older, she had time to adjust, claiming she didn't know what she was doing. But I had texts from her mocking me and my child and bragging about her plan. When friends saw those texts, their sympathy for her evaporated. They stood by me in shock at her callousness. My lawyer recommended that I request a restraining order. I did, and the judge granted a temporary one forbidding my sister from coming near me or my child. She sent frantic emails afterward promising to do anything if I dropped the charges. I forwarded them to the district attorney, more evidence of her desperation. Days before the first hearing, I received a call from her fiancé. He tried to persuade me to settle by saying that my sister had mental health issues and needed compassion, not jail time. I asked him where his compassion was when she tried to give away my baby. He had no answer. I hung up, resolved to see this through. Court day arrived, it was just a preliminary hearing. My sister stood at the defense table looking nervous and dressed too nicely, as if appearances could erase her deeds. The prosecutor laid out the basics: an attempt to place a newborn for adoption without parental consent backed by evidence, texts, brochures, suspicious calls to an agency. The judge listened intently while my sister's lawyer tried to downplay it by calling it a moment of confusion and family misunderstanding, but the judge seemed unimpressed. My sister glanced over her shoulder at me with pleading eyes. I stared back holding my baby's blanket in my lap. I wasn't going to melt under her gaze, she'd almost ruined my daughter's future. No second chances without consequences, the judge decided there was enough evidence to proceed with a trial. That night, my mother came to my doorstep ignoring the restraining order that mentioned staying away from direct involvement. You can click on share more to see if there is a part 2.